Hello everyone. Today we will study about the book on the summary of selected Buddhist Jataka stories. So in this book we have this 29 summary of the story of the Jataka story. So enjoy reading with me tonight. The story number 1, the story of Frog Deva. In the time of the Buddha, a frog listened attentively to the voice of the Buddha preaching a sermon to a human audience. While the frog was absorbed in hearing the Dharma, a cowherd came upon the scene, and being deeply impressed by the Buddha's splendors in delivering the sermon and the faithful audience, he stood there leaning on his staff stick. He was not aware that his staff was resting on the frog head. The frog was firmly determined to listen to the Dharma talk, diverting its attention from the staff on his head. Therefore, it died on the spot while it was absorbed in the sweet voice of the Dharma, and it was reborn in the Tavatangsa Deva world. In this story, the frog was reborn as a deity Deva because of its good deeds, mainly because of its attention to the voice of the Buddha or the voice of Dharma. Although in reality, the frog could not understand the meaning of the sermon in human language, but it could recognize the voice of harmlessness. It could rejoice in the soothing voice of the great Buddha. And you can learn the moral of the story of this Jataka story. It was simply the frog's attraction to the Buddha's voice that the frog was born in the heaven realm. Therefore, with the story, the application of the law of attraction proves fruitful. For the second story, the story of Galan Deva. Their life a long time ago, it got named Galan Deva, surrounded in his pleasure grounds with 1,000 colossal nymphs in the harems of the 33. 500 of these goddesses, it is said, ascended trees and threw down flowers and decked the god therewith. Now, one of these goddesses, while seated on the bough of a tree, plucking flowers, fell from that existence, her body vanishing like the flame of lamp. She was conceived immediately in a high caste family in the city of Savatthi, and was born with the faculty of being able to recall her previous existence. She remembered her former husband, the god Galanvira, and often made offerings of perfumes and gallons to him, with a prayer that she might once again be reunited with him. At the age of 16, she married and in time bore 4 children. But she could not forget her former husband and made offerings to him, talking often of him. The people imagine that she talked of her earthly husband, whereas all the time, her only thought was that of her celestial husband, the gallant wearer. Now, one day, she fell ill and died, and was born immediately into the presence of her former husband, the gallant bearer. "We have not seen you since morning," said the god. "Where have you been?" "I fell from this existence, my lord." "What? Are you in earnest?" "Precisely so, my lord," she replied. "Where were you born?" he asked. "At Savatthi, in a family of high caste." She replied. "How long were you there?" he asked again. "At the end of 10 lunar months, I issued from my mother womb. At the age of 16 years, I married into another family, and having borne 4 sons, having given gift and done other meritorious deeds, I have been born into your presence once again," she said. "How long is the life of man?" He then asked. "Only 100 years," she replied. "Is that all?" he asked. "Yes, my lord," she said. "If human life is so brief, do men pass the time asleep and reckless, or do they give gift and do meritorious deed?" he inquired. "Nothing of the kind, my lord. Men are always reckless. They imagine they would never grow old and die," she replied. The god gallant wearer, hearing this, became exceedingly agitated. "We are told men are born to a life of only 100 years, yet they recklessly lie down and sleep away their time. When will they ever get free from misery?" 100 years, only 100 years, he mused. How foolish men must be. The moral of the story: life is uncertain, death is certain, therefore heedfulness should be the guiding principle for our life. So in this story, it's more deeply that we are men, live shortly as a deva. 100 years is not long for the deva, but it's long for the human. But some people, they careless with that. They live with, in the Dharma say, in pamata. I mean that they don't care anything, just be fun and live. So the god or the deva say, "Oh, this human is so reckless. That is why his life is too short to do bad thing." So in the story, we have to be careful with this life and do good thing more. If we don't do that, we will be live in the suffering more in this life. And the third story, Tayojana, in the story of 3 groups of persons. In here, no place to hide. While residing at the Jetavana monastery, the Buddha uttered of the above mentioned verse with reference to question raised by 3 groups of bhikkhus, male monks, concerning 3 isolated extraordinary incidents. The first group, a group of bhikkhus, were on their way to pay homage to the Buddha, and they stopped at a village on the way. Some people were cooking armed food for those bhikkhus. When one of the houses caught fire, a ring of fire flew up into the air. At that moment, a crow came flying in the air, got caught in the ring of fire, and dropped dead in the central part of the village. The bhikkhus, seeing the dead crow, observed and thought that only the Buddha would be able to explain for what evil deed this crow had to die in this manner. After taking alms food, they continued on the journey to pay homage to the Buddha and also to ask about the unfortunate crow. The second group, another group of bhikkhus, were traveling on a vessel. They too were on their way to pay homage to the Buddha. When they were in the middle of the ocean, the vessel could not be moved, so lots were drawn to find out who the unlucky one was. 3 times the lot fell on the wife of the skipper. Then the skipper said sorrowfully, "Many people should not die on account of this unlucky woman. Tie a pot of sand to her neck and threw her into the water so that I would not see her." The woman was thrown into the sea as instructed by the skipper, and the ship could move on. On arrival at their destination, the bhikkhus disembarked and continued on their way to the Buddha at Jetavana temple. They also intended to ask the Buddha, due to what evil karma the unfortunate woman was thrown overboard. The third group, a group of 7 bhikkhus, were also on their way to pay homage to the Buddha. On the way, they inquired at a monastery whether there was any suitable place for them to take shelter for the night in the neighborhood. They were directed to a cave and they spent the night, but in the middle of the night a large boulder slipped out from above and effectively closed the entrance. In the morning, the bhikkhus from the nearby monastery coming to the cave saw what had happened, and they went to bring people from 7 villages. With the help of these people, they tried to move the boulder, but it was of no avail. Thus, the 7 bhikkhus were trapped in the cave without food or water for 7 days. On the 7th day, the boulder moved miraculously by itself, and the bhikkhus came out and continued their way to the Buddha. They also intended to ask the Buddha to what previous evil deed they were thus shut up for 7 days in a cave. The 3 groups of travelers met on the way, and together they went to the Buddha. Each group related to the Buddha what they had seen or experienced on their way, and the Buddha answered the questions as follows. The Buddha answered to the first group, "Bhikkhus, once there was a farmer who had an ox. The ox was very lazy and also very stubborn. It could not be coaxed to do any work. It would lie down chewing the cud or else go to sleep. The farmer lost his temper many times on account of this lazy, stubborn animal. So in anger, he tied a straw rope around the necks of the ox and set fire to it. The ox refused to move and died. On account of this evil deed, the farmer had suffered for a long time in Nirya, hellish world, and in serving out the remaining part of his punishment, he had been burned to death in the last 7 existences. The Buddha's answer to the second group: because once there was a woman who had a pet dog. She used to take the dog along with her wherever she went, and young boys of the city poked fun at her. She was very angry and felt so ashamed that she planned to kill the dog. She filled a pot with sand, tied it round the necks of the dog, and threw it into the water, and the dog was drowned. On account of this evil deed, that woman had suffered for a long time in Nirya hell, and in serving the remaining part of her punishment, she had been thrown into the water to drown in the last 100 existences. The Buddha's answer to the third group: because once 7 cowherds saw an iguna going into a mount, and they closed all the 7 outlets of the mount with twigs and branches of trees. After closing the outlets, they went away, completely forgetting the iguna that was trapped in the mount. Only after 7 days they remembered what they had done, and hurriedly returned to the scene of their mischief and let out the iguna. On account of this evil deed, those 7 had been imprisoned together for 7 days without any food in the last 14 existences. The moral of the story: one reaps what one sows, not in the sky, nor in the middle of the ocean, nor in the cave of a mountain, nor anywhere else. Is there a place where one may escape from the consequences of earned evil deed? Dhammapada. Just like our shadow, the deeds of our karma will follow us wherever we go. There is no place to hide. The story number 4: The Elephant King Jataka. Once upon a time, there was an elephant king, Jataka. The Bodhisattva of Gautama Buddha lived in a spacious plain surrounded by hills in the Himalayas. He had 2 elephant queens named Mahasapota and Chulasapota, and 7,000 attendants. All were white elephants. At a time when sal trees were in full bloom, Jataka led his 2 queens under the sal tree and shook the branches of the tree with his trunk, with the intention of raining down its flowers on their backs. Many flowers drooped on the back of Mahasapota, but a packet of red ants fell on the back of Chulasapota. The latter met an unwise reflection. This elephant king loves his chief queen more than he loves me. He drops flowers on her back, but the drops red ants on my back. He doesn't love me really. He hates me and put me to shame. Why should I love him? I hate him, and I shall break his heart. Wrong reflection be very terrible. It could immediately turn a lover in an enemy. The love which sprang out of attachment by greed could easily be turned to hatred just because of a trifle, undesirable event. There has been a saying in Myanmar, big love can burst into big hatred. When hatred arises, anger rooted. Consciousness arises accompanied by ignorant moha. Ignorance blinds the mind so that one cannot make wise reflection. With the intention of killing of the elephant king, Jataka plucked some salad flowers and offered them to Pacheka Buddha, making a wish. On account of the good merit I have done now, may I be reborn as a very beautiful girl in my next existence. May I become a chief queen, and may I wear earrings made from the tusk of the elephant king Chatanta. As she had developed hatred toward her husband, Jataka was no longer happy. She wanted to die soon, to become a human queen, and to kill Elephant King. She could not sleep and she could not eat. Soon she died. She was reborn as a very beautiful girl. When she came of age, the king of Varanasi saw her and made her his chief queen. She could remember her past existence, and she was being burned with anger to kill the elephant king, Chatanta. So, with a plan to kill Chatanta, she laid in bed without taking food and drinks. As the king of Varanasi loved his new young and beautiful chief queen with all his heart, he was very worried about her condition. So he asked her, "Dear queen, what do you want? Tell me whatever you want under the sun. I shall get it for you." Having received the promise of the king, the queen said, "I want to wear earrings made from the tusk of the white elephant king Chatanta, who lives in the Himalaya. If I cannot wear those earrings, I will surely die." The king summoned all the well-known hunters in his kingdom and entrusted the task to kill the elephant king and get his task to the well-built, skillful hunter Sanatra. The chief queen gave him directions how to go to the dwelling place of King Chatanta. She also gave him a pair of robes and advised him to wear the robes In case of danger, as King Chatanta revered monks very much. Sanandar went to the Himalayas as directed by the queen. When he reached the dwelling place of King Chatanta, he studied the movement of the Elephant King. The king took a bath daily in a lake and stood under a banyan tree. The hunter dug a tunnel and made a hole at the place where the Elephant King stood. Water drops dropping from the body and the navel of Elephant King fell through the hole. Without any delay, the great hunter shot the elephant with poisoned arrow. The arrow went through the navel into the body of the Elephant King with great force. As it was very painful, Chatanta made a loud cry. His chief queen and attendants came flying through the air. An enemy shot me. Find the enemy, said the Elephant King. All the elephants flew out in search of the enemy. When he was left alone, Chatanta pounded. The arrow went through my navel. The enemy must be under me. So he scratched out the earth under him. When the hunter was exposed, the Elephant King tried to snatch him with his trunk. The hunter evaded and quickly put the ropes in the trunk. On seeing the ropes, Chatanta's anger disappeared. He gently brought the hunter up and said, "Oh friend, I am not your enemy. Why did you shoot me so cruelly?" "Oh Elephant King, the chief queen of the king of Paranasi Cholasapata wanted your task to make earrings. The king ordered me to kill you and get your task. To obey the orders of the king, I had to shoot you with a poisoned arrow. Though 3 persons are involved in this act of shooting. If you kill me, I alone have to die. If you take pity on me, I shall love," said the hunter. Chatanta thought of the day when he was together with his 2 queens. He came to know that Cholasapata misunderstood his love toward her and she bore him a grudge. She wanted to kill him and use his tusk to make earrings. Chatanta allowed the hunter to cut his tusk. The hunter exerted great strength to cut the tusk with a sword. But the tusk was so hard that he could not hardly make a dent on it. So Chatanta took the sword with his trunk and cut his tusk himself. He gave the tusk to the hunter and let him go. When the hunter gave the tusk to the king gladly handed it over to the chief queen. She placed the white, smooth tusk on her chest, impressing it with both hands. When she heard the whole story from the hunter that King Chatanta himself cut the tusk and willingly gave it to her, she realized her mistake. She remembered the day when she was enjoying the time together with the King Chatanta. I was wrong. King Chatan didn't hate me. He did love me clearly. He did love me dearly. He even cut his tusk and gave it to me. On thinking over and over how King Chatanta had cared for her and loved her, and how she had killed him cruelly, great despair arose in her, and the hot fire of anger scorched her to death. In this story, 3 persons were involved in killing the elephant King Chatanta. Who was the killer? The hunter shot the elephant because he was ordered by the king to do so. The king, in turn, had to give the order because his beloved chief queen prompted him to do so. The hunter resembled the hand that killed the mosquito. The king resembled the consciousness that moved the hand to kill the mosquito. The chief queen resembled the volition that set the intention to kill the mosquito and prompted his concomitants to accomplish killing. Since the chief queen had the motive to kill the King Chatanta and prompted the king and the hunter to kill Chatanta, she was the original real killer, the main culprit. The moral of the story: volition itself is the real killer with evil intention. One will cause untold suffering to others and then feel repentant later on. Number 5, the story of Prince Dikavu. Be not short-sighted, be not long-sighted. Not by violence is violence ended. Violence is ended by non-violence. Dikavu, father's advice. Once in Varanasi, Pramatatta was the king of Kasi, rich, prosperous, with many possessions, many troops, many vehicles, many territory, with fully stocked armories and granaries. Tikete was the king of Kausala, poor, not very prosperous, with few possessions, few troops, few vehicles, few territories, with poorly stocked armories and granaries. So Pramatatta, the king of Kasi, raising a 4-fold army, marched against Tikete, the king of Kausala. Tikete, the king of Kausala, heard Pramatatta, the king of Kasi. They say he raised a 4-fold army and is marching against me. Then the thought occurred to him: King Pramatatta is rich, prosperous, with fully stocked armories and granaries, whereas I am poor, with poorly stocked armories and granaries. I am not competent to stand against even one attack by him. Why don't I slip out the city beforehand? So taking this chief consort, he slipped out of the city beforehand. Then King Pramatatta, conquering the troops, vehicles, lands, armories, and granaries of King Tikate, lived in lordship over them. Meanwhile, King Tikate had set out for Varanasi together with his consort, and traveling by stages arrived there. There he lived with her on the outskirts of Varanasi in a potter house. Disguised as a wanderer. Not long afterward, she became pregnant. She had a pregnancy without the sort. She wanted to see a fourfold army, armed and arrayed, standing on a parade ground at dawn, and to drink the water used for washing the sword. She said to King Tikate, "Your Majesty, I am pregnant, and I have a pregnancy without the sword. I want to see a fourfold army, armed and arrayed, standing on a parade ground at dawn, and to drink the water used for washing the swords." He said, "My queen, where is there for us fallen on hard times a fourfold army, armed and arrayed, standing on a parade ground and water used for washing the sword? If I don't get this, Your Majesty, I will die." Now at the time, the Brahmin advisor to King Pramatatta was a friend of King Tikate. So King Tikate went to him, and on arrival said, "A lady friend of yours, old friend, is pregnant, and she has a pregnancy of this sort. She wants to see a fourfold army, armed and arrayed, standing on a parade ground at dawn, and to drink the water used for washing the sword. In that case, let me see her." So King Tikate consort went to King Pramatatta's Brahman advisor. When he saw her coming from afar, he rose from his seat, arranged his robe over one shoulder, and with his hand raised in salutation to her, exclaimed 3 times, "Surely the king of Kausala has come to your womb. Surely the king of Kausala has come to your womb. Don't be worried, my queen. You will get to see a fourfold army, armed and arrayed, standing on a parade ground at dawn, and to drink the water used for washing the swords." Then he went to the king Pramatatta, and on arrival said to him, "Your Majesty, signs have appeared such that tomorrow at dawn a fourfold army, armed and arrayed, should stand on a parade ground, and that the swords should be washed." So King Pramatatta ordered his people, "I say, then, do as the Brahman advisor says." Thus, King Tikate's chief consort got to see a fourfold army, armed and arrayed, standing on a parade ground at dawn, and got to drink the water used for washing the swords. Then, with the maturing of the fetus, she gave birth to a son, whom they named Dikavu, long life. Not long afterward, Prince Dikavu reached the age of discretion. The thought occurred to the king Tikate, "This king Pramatatta of Kasi has done us great harm. He has seized our troops, vehicles, lands, armories, and granaries. If he finds out about us, he will have all three of us killed. Why don't I send Prince Tikavut to live outside of the city? So Prince Tikavut, having gone to live outside of the city, learned all the craft. Now at that time, King Tikate's barber had gone over to King Pramatatta. He saw King Tikate together with his consort, living on the outskirts of Varanasi in a porter's house, disguised as a wanderer. On seeing them, he went to the King Pramatatta and on arrival said to him, "Your Majesty, King Tikate of Kausala, together with his consort, is living on the outskirts of Varanasi in a porter's house. Disguised as a wanderer." So King Pramatatta ordered his people, "I say then, go fetch King Tikate together with his consort." Responding, "As you say, Your Majesty," they went and fetched King Tikate together with his consort. The king Pramatatta ordered his people, "I say then," having bound King Tikate and his consort with a stout rope with their arms pinned tightly against their backs, and having saved them bold, marched them to a harsh-sounding drum from street to street, crossroad to crossroad, evicted them out the south gate of the city, and there, to the south of the city, cut them into 4 pieces, and buried them in holes placed in their 4 directions. Responding, "As you say, Your Majesty," the king's people bound King Tikate and his consort with a stout rope, pinning their arms tightly against their back, saved them both, and marched them to a harsh-sounding drum from street to street, crossroads to crossroad. Then the thought occurred to Prince Tikavut, "It's been a long time since I saw my mother and father. What if I were to go see them?" So he entered Varanasi and saw his mother and father bound with a stout rope, their arms pinned tightly against their back, their heads 7 bald, being marched to a harsh-sounding drum from street to street and crossroad to crossroad. So he went to them. King Tikate saw Prince Tikavut coming from afar, and on seeing him, said, "Don't, my dear Tikavut, be far-sighted. Don't be near-sighted, for vengeance is not settled through vengeance. Vengeance is settled through non-vengeance." A third time, the people said to him, "This King Tikate has gone crazy. He's talking nonsense. Who is Tikavut? Why is he saying, 'Don't, my dear Tikavut, be far-sighted. Don't be near-sighted, for vengeance is not settled through vengeance. Vengeance is settled through non-vengeance,' and not crazy or talking nonsense. He who knows will understand." Then the king's people, having marched King Tikate together with his chief consort to a harsh-sounding drum from street to street, crossroads to crossroads, evicted them out the south gate of the city, and there, to the south of the city, cut them into 4 pieces, buried them in holes placed in the 4 directions, stationed guards and left. Then Prince Dikhavu, having entered Varanasi, brought out some liquor and got the guard to drink it. When they had fallen down drunk, he collected sticks, made a pyre, raised the bodies of his mother and father onto the pyre, set fire to it, and then circumambulated it 3 times with his hands raised in salutation. Now at that time, King Pramadatta had gone up to the terrace on top of his palace. He saw Prince Dikhavu circumambulating the pyres 3 times with his hand raised in salutation. On seeing him, the thought occurred to him, doubtlessly this person is a relative or blood kinsman of King Dikate. Ah, how unfortunate for me, for there is no one who will tell me what this means. Then Prince Dikhavu, having gone into the wilderness and having cried and wept as much as he needed to, dried his tears and entered Varanasi, going to an elephant stable next to the king's palace. He said to the chief elephant trainer, "Teachers, I want to learn this craft." "In that case, young man, you may learn it." Then, rising in the last watch of the night, Prince Dikhavu sang in a sweet voice and played the lute in the elephant stable. King Pramadatta also, rising in the last watch of the night, and heard the sweet voice singing and lute playing in the elephant stable. On hearing it, he asked his people, "I say, who was that?" Rising in the last watch of the night, singing in a sweet voice and playing a lute in the elephant stable. "Your Majesty, a young man, the student of such and such an elephant trainer, rising in the last watch of the night, was singing in a sweet voice and playing a lute in the elephant stable. I say then, go fetch that young man." Responding, "As you say, Your Majesty," they went and fetched Prince Dikhavu. Then King Pramadatta said to Prince Dikhavu, "I say, was that you rising in the last watch of the night, singing in a sweet voice and playing a lute in the elephant stable?" "Yes, Your Majesty." "I say then, my young man, sing and play the lute." Responding, "As you say, Your Majesty," and seeking to win favor, Prince Dikhavu sang with a sweet voice and play the lute. Then the King Pramadatta said to him, "I say, you, my young man, are to stay and attend to me." "As you say, Your Majesty," Prince Dikhavu replied. Then he rose in the morning before King Pramadatta, went to bed in the evening after him, did whatever the king ordered, always acting to please him, speaking politely to him, and it was not long before King Pramadatta placed the prince close to him in a position of trust. Then one day King Pramadatta said to Prince Dikhavu, "I say then, my young man, harness the chariot, am going hunting." Responding, "As you say, Your Majesty," Prince Dikhavu harnessed the chariot and then said to King Pramadatta, "Your chariot is harnessed, Your Majesty. Now is the time for you to do as you see fit." Then King Pramadatta mounted the chariot and Prince Dikavu drove it. He drove it in such a way that the king's interrake went one way and the chariot another. Then after they had gone far, King Pramadatta said to Prince Dikavu, "I say then, my young man, unharness the chariot. I'm tired. I'm going to lie down." Responding, "As you say, Your Majesty." Prince Dikavu unharnessed the chariot and sat down cross-legged on the ground. Then King Pramadatta lay down, placing his head on Prince Dikavu's lap. As he was tired, he went to sleep right away. Then the thought occurred to Prince Dikavu, "This King Pramadatta of Kasi has done us great harm. He has seized our troops, vehicles, land, armories, and granaries, and it was because of him that my mother and father were killed. Now is my chance to wreak vengeance." He drew his sword from his scabbard, but then he thought, "My father told me as he was about to die, 'Don't, my dear Dikavu, be far-sighted. Don't be near-sighted, for vengeance is not settled through vengeance. Vengeance is settled through non-vengeance. It would not be proper for me to transgress my father's words.'" So he put his sword back in its scabbard. A third time, the thought occurred to Prince Dikavu, "His King Pramadatta of Kasi has done us great harm. He has seized our troops, vehicles, lands, armories, and granaries, and it was because of him that my mother and father were killed. Now is my chance to wreak vengeance." He drew his sword from his scabbard, but then he thought, "My father told me as he was about to die, 'Don't, my dear Dikavu, be far-sighted. Don't be near-sighted, for vengeance is not settled through vengeance. Vengeance is settled through non-vengeance. It would not be proper for me to transgress my father's words.' So once again he put his sword back in its scabbard. Then King Pramadatta suddenly got up, frightened, agitated, unnerved, and alarmed. Prince Dikavu said to him, "Your Majesty, why have you gotten up suddenly, frightened, agitated, unnerved, and alarmed?" "I say, my young man, just now as I was dreaming, Prince Dikavu, son of Dikate, king of Kasi, struck me down with a sword." Then Prince Dikavu, grabbing King Pramadatta by the head with his left hand and drawing his sword from its scabbard with his right, said, "I, Your Majesty, am that very Prince Dikavu, son of Dikate, king of Kasi. You have done us great harm. You have seized our troops, vehicles, lands, armories, and granaries, and it was because of you that my mother and father were killed. Now is my chance to wreak vengeance." So King Pramadatta, dropping his head down to Princess Dikavu's feet, said, "Grant me my life, my dear Dikavu." Grant me my life, my dear Dikavu. Who am I that I would dare grant life to you, Majesty? It is your Majesty who should grant life to me. In that case, my dear Dikavu, you grant me my life, and I grant you your life. Then King Pramatatta and Prince Dikavu grant one another their life, and taking one another by the hands, swore an oath to do one another no harm. Then King Pramatatta said to Prince Dikavu, in that case, my dear Dikavu, harness the chariot, we will go on. Responding, as you say, your Majesty, Prince Dikavu harnessed the chariot and then said to King Pramatatta, your chariot is harnessed, your Majesty. Now is the time for you to do as you see fit. Then King Pramatatta mounted the chariot and Prince Dikavu drove it. He drew it in such a way that it was not long before they met up with the king's entourage. Then King Pramatatta, having entered Varanasi, had his minister and counselors convene and said to them, I say that if you were to see Prince Dikavu, the son of Dikate, the king of Kasi, what would you do to him? Different ministers said, we would cut off his hand, your Majesty. We would cut off his feet, your Majesty. We would cut off his ears, your Majesty. We would cut off his nose, your Majesty. We would cut off his ear and nose, your Majesty. And we would cut off his head, your Majesty. Then the king said, this, I say, is Prince Dikavu, the son of Dikate, the king of Kasi. You are not allowed to do anything to him. It was by him that my life was granted to me, and it was by me that his life was granted to him. Then King Pramatatta said to Prince Dikavu, what your father said to you as he was about to die? Don't, my dear Dikavu, be far-sighted. Don't be near-sighted, for vengeance is not settled through vengeance. Vengeance is settled through non-vengeance. In reference to what did he say that? And therefore the king's audience, Dikavu, restate what my father said to me as he was about to die. Don't be far-sighted. Don't bear vengeance for a long time is what he was saying to me as he was about to die. And what he said to me as he was about to die, don't be near-sighted. Don't be quick to break with a friend is what he was saying to me as he was about to die. And what he said to me as he was about to die, for vengeance is not settled through vengeance. Vengeance is settled through non-vengeance. My mother and father were killed by your Majesty. If I were to deprive your Majesty of life, those who hope for your Majesty's well-being would deprive me of life, and those who hope for my well-being would deprive them of life. And in that way, vengeance would not be settled by vengeance. But now I have been granted my life by your Majesty, and your Majesty has been granted your life by me, and in this way vengeance has been settled by non-vengeance. That is what my father was saying to me as he was about to die. Explained Dikavu. Then King Pramatatta said, isn't it amazing? Isn't it how astounding, how wise this Prince Dikavu is, in that he can understand in full the meaning of what his father said in brief. So King Pramatot returned his father's troops, vehicles, lands, armories, and granaries, and gave him his daughter in marriage. Such monks is the forbearance and gentleness of king who wield the scepter, who wield the sword. So now let your light shine forth, so that you who have gone forth in such a well taught Dharma and discipline will be their equal in the forbearance and gentleness. The moral of the story: hatred is never appeased by hatred. By love only, hatred can be eliminated. Love your enemy. Everyone. So I thought we finish in this 5 story, and we will continue tomorrow. Thank you. Good night.